Hello, friends of Chess Magic, and we are here for another episode, episode 4 of My Best Losses, or How My Mistakes Will Cure Your Ignorance. I went for Cure Your Stupidity at first, and I thought it was a little bit harsh, although, in this day and age of the internet, you kind of have to, use shock techniques. Anyway, this episode is a loss against Sergei Zhigalko, again from Belarus, like last episode against Nikita Mayarov. So that was not done on purpose. Anyway, um, let's get to it. So this game, I'm going to have black. And hang on. And this one, to be honest, is going to be a fair loss. Now, I say it's a fair loss. At the same time, you'll see that I don't actually make a lot of mistakes. The computer kind of agrees with me. I'm always down, but I'm still like, from the opening stage. And then I kind of play the best moves of the computer, and I still lose. At some point, I'm going to make a big mistake though. So C3 in the Sicilian, the Alapin, whatever. It's always pissed me off, and it's one of the reasons that I stopped playing the Sicilian. So if I do play it again, it really will be against weaker opposition. I played it once against an IM in a tournament in Riga, and I think the guy's name is Landa. He's a famous, maybe he's a GM even, guy from Latvia, and at the end of the game, we analyzed, and a couple of his pals passed by, and there was Sulskis in the lot. So the level of analysis was very strong, and I was 2300 at that point, but I was definitely sort of like, whoa, this is going fast. And Sulskis at some point he just looked at me and said, no, but my studies show that if you want to play the Sicilian, you have to know how to be dynamic. It really is for people who have like a second sense for dynamism, right? So if you're going to play it, just have that in mind. It's not to be positional. At some point, you're going to have to explode. You are statically worse. You have less space. So that's in general. Now the obviously the Alapin is a little bit different. And so what I used to do always was play d6. Now I would generally play it because all the other lines, let's say this type of stuff, right? Which is the main line theory, and I don't know. I just took one line at random, right? I don't know which is the most fashionable, but it just seems to me that if White knows this theory, he can draw, and at that stage I was very much a player like, oh, you always have to play for a win, and it just annoyed me to learn theory to make a draw, especially variations that are so long. So there's that one. There was the other one which was fashionable, which was d5. I kind of stopped playing it when I think they were playing it like this with bishop f5, and Black was doing fine, but it was complicated, and I just got fed up with it. I started playing the French, and then I started playing e4, e5. Anyway, get back to the game. What I used to do was that. So this is fine against, let's say, weaker opposition, except for this guy is like 2670. I was 2230. So there's kind of a 400, more than 400 points missing there. But anyway, you never know what can happen. Bishop d3, and so this kind of, it goes back to a modern, right? So just for reference, this could very well come from the lazy line of the modern. And here, most of the time, Black plays with castle, knight c6, and e5, right? They play something like, I don't know. They play it more like knight c6, c3, e5. That's the general way of playing it. And I play that with White. I actually very happy to play that with White. it saves you overextending, or you know, when you're playing against a Perts or a modern defense, White has a tendency to think, oh, this is, I really have to win, and so they really go for it, and often they overestimate their advantage and they lose that way. So I kind of take it easy to say on that type of thing. Anyway, so this is just another way to go about it, right? It's the other way. It's c5, and so we fall back on this, and knight c6. It's not the only move. There are other moves, but they fail to impress. If you're playing this, you're basically wanting to get some kind of position. You're not really planning on equalizing. Knight c6, and this is obviously a provocative, right? We want to get d5, and we can either just go back to b8, or we can also play knight a5, which is kind of playable. And but I used to play it like this: knight e5. I accept that, and I get this d6 square from my knight, right? Knight e8, knight d6. Now that's one way. Or you can imagine that the queen goes to d6, and then that knight goes knight h5, knight f4, right? And the double pawn on e5 serves a purpose. So those are the two ways. Obviously, the queen on d6, I kind of want the pawn to arrive on c4 before I put it there, because otherwise there could just be a knight c4 at some point. Well, I lose a tempo. It might not be that, important. But Zhigalko, he's kind of really going to he's got a plan, and he's definitely going to, he's going to be spot on. So bishop e3. So here, already kind of not so much a mistake on my part, but I miss an opportunity to bring the game into a better kind of fight for me, right? So it's just not very precise what he did here. He should have played c4 first and bishop e3 afterwards, because here there is the possibility of playing c4, right? And if take, I take on e4, and then I jump to d6 afterwards. And if he plays bishop c2, which is kind of the logical move, I get e6 in, and now I can kind of find it's acrobatic, but you're in the game, and the computer kind of agrees. He puts equality, then he puts a white advantage, equality, and oscillates between the two. So if it was that, I would still play this position today, but he just had to reverse it. He had to play c4 first. Anyway, I didn't take too much of a difference. I just played b6. He played c4, and I go to my d6 square that I wanted, and I play f5. So I'm getting everything I want. I can't complain. As I said, I didn't play particularly badly this game. And he plays b4. Now this is great. This is what he's doing is very much to the point. If I take, he's gonna get this pawn mass, right, which is gonna move forward. So I kind of have to be passive here and just accept the weakness on c5, right? So I take, he gets the knight in. All this actually the computer gives for both sides. We're playing good chess. Bishop c, and here, yeah, I'm going to make a mistake here. I should probably keep the position closed and hope for the best, right? He's got a small plus, but nothing. He needs to prove it. I play take, thinking I'm being smart here. Trying to gain activity of my own. And he takes with the bishop, which is good, because I was maybe thinking in terms of bishop pairs, or I'm not exactly sure what I was thinking. But actually here I've kind of given life to the bishop, because I'm not going to intend on taking it. I mean, I have no intention of taking it, so I should have thought about that a little bit more carefully. So here it was quite imprecise. King h8. I go back on track. These are computer moves again. Like the computer likes this. He does say that white should grab the pawn, Although from a human perspective, I understand why he didn't, because it just looks like it's messy now, right? I get that C pawn running, so I don't see why. I understand why he didn't do that. He just comes back and goes back to C2. So, okay, I'm heading for D4. Uh, it seems like I'm doing absolutely fine. And I'm going to lose very, very fast. I'm just going to make a terrible mistake at some point. So he takes here, because obviously if I get to D4, I'm doing quite well. So he takes. And here already, I'm trying to think in dynamic terms rather than I'm not sure, to be honest. I don't want to put words on it. I think I wanted I want my bishop pair now to kind of play rather than be stacked behind the pawns. And so I just wanted to break everything open, which is very much textbook thinking, right? And I think that a lot of people who have a lot of chess culture, they're not too bad at calculation. They're good at openings, like myself. I'm pretty good at openings, and they have everything, but somehow they're afflicted by idioms like, oh, you should be doing this, and that's no longer the way, right? These days, it's much more about being very concrete in every single position and just keeping an open mind. So I get the bishop pair, so it's like, oh yeah, open the position, and these kind of things can cost you a lot. So this is what's going to happen. I'm going to take with the bishop rather than with the pawn. Not huge difference. The computer is kind of 0.30 more. If I'd have taken with the pawn, I would have been like at -1, and here I'm like at -130. And he goes to F2, and I go to A4 again. Correct move. It's nothing is clear yet. He doesn't really like Rook FD8. I'm talking computer now. Anywhere else like F7 or E8. Like, so apparently that's. But I wanted to, I'm kind of putting this is a hanging piece, right? I'm attacking it once, defending it once. So this kind of pins the knight to an extent. Obviously, there's knight C3, knight E3. He's not losing, kind of thing. We're just keeping an eye on things. And so he grabs here, so now it's what? It's 2 pawns. And the big mistake is this. I mean, if I grab on C4, obviously I'm accepting with the rook or with the queen. I'm accepting to play an inferior endgame. But if I grab on A3, then it's going to be very difficult for him to prove. So here, I think it's a case of allowing yourself to defend those passive positions, right? As much as that's not, great advice, and sometimes you're just going to have to do it, because by saying, oh, remain active and try and get activity, like when you're, the Dorfman thing, when you're worse, you have to play dynamically, and when you're better, you're supposed to play statically, right? And if you're better statically, right, don't play dynamically, because that means you're going to try and win twice, and that's why sometimes you lose winning positions. So here it was very much a question of just being level-headed and accepting that you're down. So what I did is a terrible mistake. It's E4, and the reason being is actually very simple to understand, and very often a case of, and I see it happened in the Chuchelov game too. It's simply not understanding what king security is at the end of the day, right? It's like believing that here you got your king and the bishop and stuff, and so, well, there's no pieces for the moment, so your king is kind of safe. I can do that. But by playing E4, you're considerably weakening a color complex, and he still has this bishop of this color complex. So the game finishes very abruptly. He plays bishop d4, and he simply exchanges, and it's all over. The queen's just going to infiltrate, and I lost. Now I don't know if I actually resigned here. I remember resigning early. If I did, I only played a few more moves. It does look slightly premature, but I believe that if we put the computer on this, it's a big, it's like -5 or something. So really, e4 is a huge mistake. If I just take the pawn and accept to play, a bad ending, which is kind of what the opening was saying. It's like, you're down, you're accepting to be um, the underdog here, right? And so you just have to buy your time. And sometimes that -1 continues into the end game until you get to the table bases, and it just says, well, it's a draw. That +1 doesn't mean anything anymore. So there you have it. That's my game against Zhigalko from Capelle-la-Grande 2011. Hope you liked. Please subscribe to the channel so we can get some kind of feedback on if we're doing things right, or if you care at all. Okay. Take care and see you for episode 5.